Don't give up hope. Please don't. I know that it looks pretty bleak right now, but we keep fighting for this every day. It means so much to so many people, and you have become the #1 issue in America.
Welcome back. I'm David Gura. That was Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin speaking to a dreamer. The March 5th deadline that'll determine their fate draws ever nearer. We're just 22 days away. Those comments ahead of tomorrow's Senate showdown. A rare, open-ended debate focused on immigration reform fulfills GOP Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's promise that brought an end to the mid-January shutdown, the first of 2 that we've had this year. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle will offer amendments to a bill that, in part, protects younger undocumented immigrants from deportation and also improves border security. Joining us now is Wadi Gaitan. He's a national press secretary for the LIBRE Initiative. That's a conservative group funded in part by Freedom Partners, a Koch brothers-backed group. NBCnews.com contributor Raul Reyes is with me here in New York. Let's start with what we've heard so far, Raul, if we could. A lot of promises from Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, also from House Speaker Paul Ryan as well. Let's take a listen to what he had to say recently about this debate.
I know that there is a real commitment to solving the DACA challenge in both political parties. That's a commitment that I share. To anyone who doubts my intention to solve this problem and bring up a DACA and immigration reform bill, do not. We will bring a solution to the floor, one that the president will sign.
Raul, if anything, we've gotten promise after promise after promise. How much is that worth in Washington today? As you're looking ahead to this debate,
that's
what
a
do you
big question.
think?
Okay, well, I will say this. We are, on the positive side, Mitch McConnell has kept his promise that the Senate is going to take up DACA and immigration-related matters this week. But the problem is, because there's no consensus around this issue, he's not. A typical move would be to introduce some type of legislation or proposal and let, say, amendments pull right or left. That's not happening. He's basically just opening the floor and saying, figure it out, discuss it amongst yourself. And he's doing this 1 week before Congress leaves for its February recess. So that gives lawmakers 5 days to figure out this super complicated problem, which is unlikely. Or maybe he's thinking they can discuss it for a week, go home, get pushback from the constituents, and then come back and try and solve it. But that's threading like a very small needle in a short period of time. And it's not just DACA, because it's such a broad forum, we're also going to be talking about whether they want the wall, whether we're going to change the diversity visa lottery, changes to legal migration, and so on. So there's going to be a lot more at stake besides DACA actually being discussed.
Wadi, I want to ask you about the path forward. Jeff Flake, the Republican senator from Arizona, newly liberated as he looks forward to retirement, was on Meet the Press this morning, and he was talking about the White House framework for immigration. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I hope that he sticks to it. We have had some issues of him saying, well, this looks good, and we hope that you in the House and Senate will work it out, and I'll sign whatever, and then later saying, no, I don't like this proposal, or I don't like that. But I do think that this week is going to be, like I said, something we haven't seen before, and I'm looking forward to it, as are my colleagues.
Wadi, I'm going to seize on that. This week is going to be different. He's looking forward to it. What feels different to you this time around?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, this is really a rare opportunity. On the positive side, what we believe is that achieving something that creates certainty and security for the dreamers, this could be the chance to have that open debate. I mean, a lot of the sort of bills that have been floating around have sort of been discussed between members, and we haven't really seen that open debate that we're going to see this week. What I think is important, though, is that as members are introducing amendments, this isn't about show. This isn't just about saying, here's what my bill would do. They need to go in with an understanding that their amendments should address the 4 pillars of the White House. If their bill does do that, then this has an opportunity to make it through the House and to be signed by the President. And that's the path that really these members of the Senate are going to have to take down if they want to get those 60 votes.
Raul, things seem tenuous here.
Right.
This is a politically fraught issue, as it always seems to be. You had the President weighing in on Twitter. He said Republicans want to fix DACA more than Democrats do. The Dems had all 3 branches of government back in 2008, 2011, and they decided not to do anything about DACA. They only want to use it as a campaign issue. And here's what I seize upon the last part of that: vote Republican. There isn't a whole lot of time left. There is a need for bipartisanship here. What does something like that do as we look ahead to the Senate debate?
It doesn't really help the process because, well, number one, I mean, in terms of what Democrats have done for DACA, President Obama created DACA. It was Donald Trump who ended it and started this whole whole artificial crisis. So the problem is, as Wadi mentioned, the good news, I guess you could say, the positive, that we are potentially going to be exploring different issues surrounding immigration this week. The problem is that since September 5th, when the president ended DACA, this debate has grown from being just a debate about the fate of the Dreamers to now this much larger debate about our immigration system, both legal and also undocumented people. So these 4 pillars that the president talks about as being part of a proposal, that alone will be problematic for the Senate. And if anything gets through the Senate, honestly, there's no guarantee, as the clip showed, that Paul Ryan will introduce anything in the House. And to be frank, to be blunt, Democrats don't have a lot of leverage there. You know, he hasn't promised them anything. Obviously, they're not the majority. So even if something were to pass the Senate with overwhelming support, it could very well die in the House. So it's a sort of a perilous time for immigrant advocates and for people who are very concerned about the fate of the Dreamers.
Wadi, what do you want the White House to do here going forward? What role would you like to see this administration play? Just a moment ago, we talked about the framework that the White House put forward there. There were detractors on both sides of the aisle when it comes to that framework. What role do you want to see the administration play as we look forward to this debate?
Really, at this point, what the White House needs to do is really allow Congress to work on something that reflects those 4 pillars. If the White House continues to do what they do now, and that is just presented those 4 pillars and not change within that area, what Congress can do is put something that creates certainty for Dreamer, improves our security, and actually modifies family-based migration in a way that doesn't actually reduce the amount of immigrants that are entering the country. So if the White House can allow Congress to be creative, to engage in this open process without changing, because the problem that some of the senators have said is that they present a legislation, they present an idea, and then at one moment it's a yes, and then later on they hear that it's a no. So if we can keep stability on the pillars and allow Congress to be creative and present something that creates certainty and security.
But yet, even including those 4 pillars introduces great uncertainty into what should be a debate just over DACA. That is the crux of the problem.
And we're going to have to leave it there. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Really quickly here, Wadi, if you would.
I will agree. If we could keep this as narrow as possible, but maybe just Dreamers and improve security, but it is difficult because of the 4 pillars that the White House introduced.
There you go. Wadi Gaitan, thank you very much. Ro, thank you very much for your time as well.